Does playing in the meadow.
How do you know?
I feel it in my hooves. If there was danger, they'd know to stomp, and I'd run to them.
But wouldn't you be scared?
Perhaps, but I would still run to them. A prince may be afraid, but he can't let fear stop him from acting.
Wow, you know everything.
Many people roll their eyes and cringe over the many straight-to-video Disney sequels from the late 90s to the early 2000s, and I wouldn't blame them. They're notorious cash-ins that unnecessarily continue a story that doesn't need to be stretched any further, because all knots are tied and a perfect closure is made. But very few people have made some exceptions, one being The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, Aladdin and the King of Thieves, and the theatrical sequel being The Rescuers Down Under. The list goes on. But there have been other exceptions which I'll admit is debatable, and one of which I want to bring to the table is Bambi 2. Now, given some disclosure, this was a movie that I admittedly turned away from when I first heard about it, but mostly because of my personal grudges on the original film in my teen years, perceiving it as a toddler flick. However, in my college years, I saw a few clips on YouTube and I was starting to get intrigued with what was shown, and when attempting to satisfy my curiosity, I took a look at the film, and much to my surprise, I was legitimately impressed. And 10 years ago today, it's what got me started on speculating and being an enthusiast with animated movies, and then being a movie reviewer around the anticipation of The Princess and the Frog. Let's get one major obvious thing out of the way. This is not a sequel, it's a midquel, a story that takes place in the center of the original film, and in the case of Bambi, accordingly, it makes perfect sense because there was a gap in the original film where it jumped from winter to spring after Bambi's mother died, and in 0 seconds no less, showing the dark colors of the depressed tone of winter to the bright colors of spring where the animals are singing happily. Was the gap necessary to be filled in? Probably not, but I find it very fitting. It helps establish Bambi's connection with the Great Prince of the Forest, who was revealed in the first movie to be Bambi's father. In this installment, he goes through the hoops and obstacles to get well acquainted with him. In the second half of the film, he's confronted with his identity, as he's forced to move with a replacement doe while also proving his bravery when confronting an unstoppable situation. This alone is one of the reasons why I appreciate this midquel. Unlike other sequels, this one didn't try to make a cheap, silly, and bullshit marketing story where a group of characters get into hijinks and shit on the original. It was a story that was its own and did favors for the original film respectively. It could have gone to the routes of what I could have briefly mentioned earlier, but instead there was a good sense of effort in this movie. Alongside with that, you couldn't have found a better cast with the two main characters. This is Alexander Gold as Bambi, who was originally the voice of Nemo in Pixar's Finding Nemo, and the Great Prince is voiced by none other than Patrick Stewart, who was also known to be the role of Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation. In addition, the look and feel is well reminiscent of the original as well. The animation looks wonderful, given the feel of the Disney Renaissance like Aladdin and The Lion King. The movements are very smooth and the shading gives the roundness needed. Not to mention the right colors are used to capture the feel of the seasons, and the moments that complement the tone of any scenario it's meant to present. The bright spring color palettes help the uplifting scenes, and the dark and intense scenes gives a more extreme color like red to make the scenario look more terrifying and not just in the character's eyes. If this sounds like I'm echoing off of Doug Walker's Disney December review, that's because I just happen to agree with him on this one. There are some disagreements I do have though. There's this character named Rano who appears to be a bully stereotype, but also revealed to be the deer of Bambi faces in his adulthood. There's this complaint that he addressed.
For example, there's this one deer that's kind of a bully, but he's not the villain or anything, he's just kind of a jerky, fragile kid, and I think they're building up that this is the bully that then confronts him years in the future. He even says at the end, one day we'll meet up again, and I'm thinking, you didn't need to make that connection. I like that this was just a jerky deer. It's the forest, it's nature, predators, you just kinda get it.
I'll admit that his bully stereotype personality is shoehorned, but what some don't know, Rano was actually a character in the novel by Felix Salten, so in some retrospects, it's a nice addition for the resources to be utilized. However, I do agree that with the use of him being put into a bully stereotype position, it does become a pet peeve for some viewers. I don't have as much of an issue with Rano compared to Flower. There's a few moments where he lets out his instinct, I should say, and it's a fart joke. Now, I am mixed on toilet humor, and it all narrows down to taste. But I didn't even laugh in Pumbaa's backstory on The Lion King during Hakuna Matata, and that's always been my favorite Disney movie. I do laugh when it comes to this type of humor, but not in Disney animation. It just feels like a desperate attempt to make kids laugh. Now, I'm sure there are those who do get a laugh from this, and that's fine, but this didn't sit well with me. My other issue also roots back to the title. Calling a movie 2 when the title is not only misleading, but it's also annoying. This isn't the first time it happened. Tarzan 2 took place in the middle of his childhood, and Fox and the Hound 2 is in the same predicament, except that movie was much worse. Truth be told, Bambi 2 was originally going to be named Bambi and the Great Prince of the Forest, and you couldn't have found a much more fitting title that can pique the viewer's interest in what the movie could be about. But no, instead of going for the honest title, they decided to name it 2, which to an extent devalues the casual viewer's interest as a preconceived marketing cliche. But all gripes aside, yeah, I like this movie. While it isn't perfect and won't compete well with the original, it doesn't have to. It gives a nice feel to the original, but establishing elements in favor of it instead. I know that most Disney sequels are utter cash-ins, but aside from Lion King 2, I think this is another diamond in the rough. Check this movie out if you like the original film. And if you aren't as satisfied with it as I am, at least you gave it a try. To the final rating, I give Bambi 2 a 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you for watching. This is GoldenFox, and take care.